All right, January 25th. We're rolling along. It's a happier time of year for me because I look out the window at 5:30 and there's still light in the sky, and I love that. That tells me summer's coming and the fish are on the way. So light on the horizon. So we've
Hey,
got
John, that fishing post was fabulous.
pretty cool stuff, huh? Yeah, I keep digging them out of the archives. Good stuff. So anyway, we're gonna start off here. If there's any questions up front, we hit real quick. I know Jim's probably got one for email deliverability, and that was a big topic last week. And then we'll go right into to Jay. We got Jay on here willing to share some really cool stuff on NLP. And so we'll just do real quick. If anybody's got quick questions, get your hands up. We'll hit those real fast, and then we'll turn Jay's ultimate power loose on all of us, and then I'll come back and wrap it up and answer any other questions that may be out there. So, Mr. McLean, go ahead.
Hey there, everybody. Long time no see. Hey, do you have time, John? I can just show you my website and get inspire others, but also get your opinion.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Fantastic.
Share
All
the
right.
screen out there and we'll see what you got. I know this was what you were bringing up on the last one.
Yepper. And so I first went with more technical stuff on the landing page, but then I watched a review of your stuff and I went to big idea. So let me know how this plays out.
All right. Okay, so you got welcome to the future of lead generation. At first glance, you got a lot of text.
Okay.
You got a lot of text above the fold. It's probably too much.
Okay, got it.
Probably like way too much.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were talking on the last call about the micro commitments.
Yeah.
The big idea should be like that is your attention grabber, and then you go right to call to action.
Yep.
So what we see above the fold should be just that.
Okay.
All the little fine stuff should get pushed down kind of below the fold.
Okay, this was the original page. I've scrolled down.
Okay.
This is the original page, which I said, well, I better keep this. And I kind of looked at it and I liked how clean it was. You have complete control. Now, again, these might not be the right words, but I like, you have complete control, enter the keywords. We identify, track, and verify, deliver to you, contact leads at the peak. I looked at that and I thought, boy, just those headlines make it pretty clear.
Yes. See, because right after the headline, you immediately go diving into the weeds again.
Right. So my question to you is does that look pretty good to use? Just those headlines, but keep them as they are, because it gives some pretty good initial, I think, initial question answers or features. But should I replace it with big picture stuff?
Yes.
That is more long-winded in here.
Yeah, because we're like in a long sales page. You've probably seen these. The sales page goes on forever. That's where the details belong. The details belong down in the weeds. Put the weeds where the weeds go, in the weed area.
Right. That's those two following pages.
Yeah. So up at the top, big idea is really a 3-piece puzzle. Big idea is a promise.
Oh, okay.
So here, where is the promise? So I got to really dig in here to figure out where the promise is, because you're posing it in a question. Or
John, isn't market qualified leads for less than a click rather a large promise?
Yeah, actually it is, but I was thrown with the leading the sentence with where, because that's a question, not a statement.
that follows through from the first one. Welcome to the future where
Yeah.
you can buy. Yeah.
But that's a different color. That's a different font size. It's not
Okay.
part of that sentence.
So now you can buy market qual. So welcome to the future of lead generation. Now you can buy market qualified leads for less than a click.
So I would put welcome to the future of lead generation as the last tagline.
Oh, okay.
I would put the headline, the very first thing they see is finally market qualified leads for less than the cost of a click.
Oh, nice. Okay. That's the
That
prompt.
would be like the top headline, and then welcome to the future of lead generation.
Underneath that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I should go ahead.
And then basically now you're moving them immediately to the call to action of over in the right side where you've got your video. You should put right here, all you should say here is click to watch this short video.
Okay.
Because that's what you want them to do, right? You want them to watch that video.
Yeah.
And that video should be telling them, here's what I've got. Here's what it's going to do for you. What I want you to do next is enter your name and email below to get the fabulous thing I've got for you, whatever that might be.
Got it. I'm with you so far.
And that really is all you want above the fold. That's it. That's all you need.
Okay.
And then take everything else down below. If they see that and they're not sold already to go ahead and take your call to action, then you're going to have a different personality. They're going to go and they're going to, okay, this looks really cool. I'm interested, but tell me more. And then that's where you take them into the high level description. Like this video is perfect for the high level description. So that should probably be the next thing. Like, here's how it works.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Let them watch that video. And then if they're not sold, then like you could put your call to action again right after that. Like you could add on to this video. At the end of this video, you could say, you could give them the same call to action, enter your name and email below, and, whatever you're going to deliver to them, I'll give you the fabulous thing, whatever it is. And then you go down further, and if they're not satisfied yet, let's take them a little deeper in the weeds, but keep the weeds off the front.
Yeah. Okay.
Bury the shit out of those weeds. And if they were really a bean counter, it's there for them, but it's not in the way.
Yeah.
Because everything you put in the way of the call to action is you're just putting more in the way of the call to action.
Got it.
So clean, simple, fast, to the point. These are business people. Don't waste their time.
Okay.
Let them get, like, if they're ready to go, don't get in their way.
Okay. I got two questions for you. So just to understand what you said so far, I'm going, and actually it occurs to me, I should have just opened this up in CarDraw. I could have just dragged and dropped everything you just said, but I'll rewatch the recording. So this is going to go up top and this is going to go under it. Welcome to the future. The video is really saying, hey, I've got this great thing. Click on and give me your information so I can market to them. This really needs to be shortened up, and the only thing the text should say is click below to to watch a video. I understand that. This should go up top. This page should go right underneath this page, the landing page.
Yep. And here's how it works.
Yep. And so I have two questions for you. You mentioned that the first one is, okay, so I've got all this straightened out. It's like an L here, an upside down L. What about this stuff here?
That stuff gets moved down. It just gets moved down. If you want to keep it up here, just all it needs to be is bullet points. But if you're going to create bullet points up here, they should all be benefit, not feature.
Okay. That's so looking at this last page, which which just was a template, I should follow this example of just a sentence with no added, but it should be benefit, benefit, benefit.
Yeah. And when you're doing your benefits, remember the Whiz Gat exercise?
Yes, but why don't you refresh the memories of everyone else?
So Whiz Gat stands for what is so good about that. So when
Yes.
you think you have your benefit right, ask
Yeah.
yourself, what is so good about that? And you'll probably get the real benefit.
Okay. Are
And when
any
you
of
ask when you ask yourself, what's so good about that? And you have a new one,
Mhm.
ask yourself, what's so good about that? And whiz gat the living shit out of that thing till there's nothing left in the tank.
Okay.
That's going to be your benefit.
Let me ask you, since they're already there, do any of these have any whiz gat magic? Any of these phrases I can keep in the whiz gat category?
Those all need to get whiz gatted.
Okay. All right. That answers that. And
And
then
everything needs to get whiz gatted. Whiz gat the shit out of everything, and you will be right on track.
I wish I could buy whiz gat in a can. Now you can buy it in a can.
I just gave you a lifetime supply for free.
Oh, F&A you did. All right, my final question is this. When you started, oh, wise one, you said, well, there's three things. The first one is promises. Okay,
Uh-huh.
what are the other two?
So the promise is the first thing.
Yeah.
Second thing is promise just by itself, people can blow that off. They're like, oh yeah, I don't believe it.
Mhm.
So the thing that makes it real and valid is the unique delivery mechanism.
Okay.
What's the thing that's going to give them this result? What's the thing that's going to give them the result? And it's going to, by the way, the thing is the thing that does all the work.
Yeah.
It takes the work off them. It's like magic. Hey, this thing delivers that result. And I don't have to do anything.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. If this is promise and this is just getting them to click here, where does the unique delivery mechanism go? Is
So
that
here you
that
could, no, it's in that first statement. Like if you want to really make a big idea is in one simple little phrase statement. And it's the promise. It includes the promise, the unique delivery mechanism, and saying it in a way they've never heard it before.
okay?
So your unique delivery mechanism could be the thing they've never really heard before as well, which is pre-targeting.
Okay.
So you could say, you know, you can get market qualified leads for less than the cost of a click with our new pre-targeting.
Software.
Because they're not going to know what that is. And
Yeah.
that checks off the third box, the saying it in a way they've never heard it before. So that is the makings of a big idea with all three pieces together.
Okay. Well, I think we whiz-gatted the hell out of that. So I need a cigarette now. Ooh, man. All right, pal. Thanks. Much
You
obliged.
got it. All right, Mr. Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I don't know what it is about me and email, but there's something about it I apparently just don't get. I don't, Teresa's talking about 40% open rate and 50% book. It's like I can't seem to get when is the guy that knows how to write emails and stuff going to come around? Because I send out thousands and thousands. Literally, I can show you the counts, and
so
I get one or two unsubscribes, and it's like.
So let's just address the dragon in the room. So analytics says it all. Analytics shows you where your breaking point is. So if you're not getting your mail delivered, that's a problem with poor leads. So we don't have that with Acquisitionaire. We've got 99% delivery. So the problem is probably in your open rate. Like Teresa said, she gets a 40% open. That means her subject line is so much in tune with what her viewer wants, they're clicking on it. Headline is your breaker on open rates. If you're not getting good open rates, it is nothing other than your headline. You got to figure out what is it going to take? What's my attention grabber to get them to open that email? That's headline. There's nothing else. That is where the problem lies. So if you're not figuring it out, you need to go back in the ACT program back to analysis and figure out who is this person, what do they want, why do they want it, and you need to align your headline with that, and then you'll get more action. And it's testing. There's no magic bullet to this. There's no crystal ball. It's test, test, test. And you'll figure out what works better. Like Like if Teresa changes her headline up on her next round, and all of a sudden now her open rate goes to 30%, she missed the mark. She needs to go back to the control. So whatever your result, your current result is your control group. You're trying to beat the control group. So you test something else. If it works better, you have a new control. That's the new winner. And now you go back to the drawing board. How do we beat the new control? Your job in life should be to beat the control group. That's how you get better. That's how you increase your conversion. That's how you get more profit. That's how you make more money, by beating the control. So you look for your breaking points. You look at what's the control, beat the control. That's the game. So subject line, pure and simple. If people are not opening your email, it is the subject line that's broken. So I hope that was helpful, because that goes right to it. I mean, we got right on the sore spot right there.
Yeah, I kind of figured that, but I still haven't been able to sort that out yet. But okay, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Anything else before we unleash the fury of Mr. Williams on the entire group? All right. Well, you guys better buckle up and let's sit back and enjoy the ride. Jay, go ahead. This is Jay Williams. I've known for a long time. I went through NLP before I actually knew Jay. And then, I went through some of his classes and I'm like, damn, this is so much better than what I learned originally. But anyway, I was too late. I already had the groundwork laid, but
well, that's kind of you to say. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited to be able to spend some time, and thanks, John, for inviting me in.
yeah.
This platform is like one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Where you share with people, hearing you share your wisdom with everybody. And even when most of it goes over my head, which is like only all the time, I like watching when you're interacting with somebody and you see the understanding sweep over their face. You know what I mean? That is fun. So we've been doing this a while. So today, sorry, it's nighttime, my time. I'm in Eastern Europe. So if I say tonight, it's just a reference. I'm just utilizing the what's going on around me. But today we'll have a little crash course in NLP and see how deep we can go down the rabbit hole. And I don't want to mess up everything you already know about objections. I don't want to do that, but it may happen. Because we're going to dive into that topic that's near and dear to the heart of everybody who's ever been in sales, right? Objections. Why do we focus so much on objections? Why do we have to overcome them? Let me ask you guys. By the way, if you're not in sales and you are, this is completely irrelevant and you don't have to worry about it, because it doesn't actually apply to everything else you'll do in your whole life. I promise it does. But if you could overcome any objection anywhere, anytime, would it be valuable to you? Yes? Cool. All right. It's working. And if there was a way that somehow we could learn to not only expect objections, but actually look forward to them happening, would that be kind of cool? Maybe even a little crazy. I know you never thought about that, right? So we're going to start here today, and my goal is that you become really, really curious about all this, and that you start to change the way you look at objections. And I always use air quotes with this word because I'll tell you about it in a little later. But for those of you who don't know me yet, I'm kind of the secret NLP guy in the group. I've been teaching and using NLP now for 14 years next month. That's a long time to learn to use NLP in 1 month. But anyway, I've even written a few courses on sales and influence using the principles of what I like to call tactical NLP. Before I got into NLP, I was in sales myself since I was 19 years old. I bought my first real business at 23, and I've owned and operated a ton of businesses over the years since then. Some were really great and some really pathetic in terms of success. These days, I make home in Athens with my amazing wife, who is also, by the way, a gifted NLP trainer. And we have businesses here in Greece and in America that we both work in. And I will confess to you that I struggle every bit as much in getting my own stuff done as anybody else in here. So that's my weakness. That's my little quick CV and pedigree. If you want more information on that, we can chat about it outside the group's time. But I want to really dive in and give you as much as I possibly can in the next few minutes, and then we'll get to some interaction, and you can ask me questions, give me specific objections to talk about, and all that stuff. But let's talk about objections before we begin. First, let's talk about what is not an objection, because I think a lot of times we misinterpret what's going on. And John touched on this on the last call. That was brilliant, right? What isn't an objection? Okay, a question isn't an objection. Sometimes in sales, we grow to fear a request for more information, right? Someone's opinion is not an objection. Okay, you know what they say about opinions? Price, money is not an objection. And I know that one's going to strike a nerve. Story time, really brief. I worked in a furniture store in Las Vegas many years ago, before I knew NLP, by the way. Otherwise, I would have been a little more elegant, I hope. We were having a company-wide sales meeting. There was only 3 stores in the company, but we were meeting on a Saturday morning, and the general manager came in to give us a sales training. So he's got the entire company, and he starts by telling us how much we can discount our product before we get in trouble. I'm like, how much we can discount the product before we start to get in trouble? That sucks. He literally was going by, money is the only issue. And so I raised my hand, and he overlooked me for as long as he could, because let's just say it wasn't our first disagreement. And I mentioned, I said, Elliot, that's not about money. Money's never the object. And he gets kind of flustered. He says, yes, it is. He says, we have to be competitive. And I said, I understand that, but we can be competitive by raising the value. I said, let me, if I can prove to you that money is not the object, can we shift gears? He says, okay. I said, what kind of car do you drive? Now, I already knew the answer to the question, because we don't ask questions that we don't know the answers to. I knew the answer to the question. I said, what kind of car do you drive? He told me. And I said, so was that the cheapest car you could find? No, of course not. So what was that caused you to choose that particular car? He says, well, it had this that I wanted. I said, so what you wanted was more important than what you paid. Anyway, finally, an objection is not an objection. So now let's talk about what is an objection. Well, consider a principle. I'm going to go a little deeper. Is that okay if I go into the weeds, into the back end of how we create objections as human beings? Is that all right? Everybody cool with this? This is advanced stuff. I'm not giving you the high level schmoozy 75-year-old sales baloney. Okay, I'm going to go back into the archives of how people work. Is that okay?
Jay, the only an objection is never an objection. It's always something the salesman creates. When you're a good salesman, you never come up against the objections because you do not create them in the first place. You're absolutely correct. I've been in sales for over 50 years, guys. So what Jay is saying is absolute solid gold. If you get an objection, you created it. So handle it, but then learn how you created it so you don't do it next time. And eventually get to a point where you pretty much sail through. You don't get objections. You get, as Jay said, questions of clarification. You answer them, and then you assume the sale. When we used to do one-on-one sales, as soon as you answer your question, you go back to filling out the paperwork. And unless they stop you, you continue filling out the paperwork. And that's exactly what Jay is talking about in the situation he's talking about here. He's absolutely spot on.
I appreciate that, Richard, and I agree with almost everything you said. And I'll hopefully give some, even those of us who have been in this most of our lives, as I have. I've been since 19 years old, I've been selling something. I'll even go deeper. This is like what I teach in my most advanced persuasion contexts. And it will change, hopefully, the way that you think about how we do things. Because every human being either does or does not do, I feel like I'm channeling my inner Yoda there. Everything we do or do not is linked to our values. What's a value? That's what we consider to be important. Okay. Values are the programs that run deep within our own unconscious mind. We don't think about them because they're part of who we are. Okay. They represent what's important to us. Now, that sounds simple, but most people go about their day and they never even consider what their values are because their values are constantly running in the background. It's very stable, right? It's our system. It's like the operating system on your computer most of the time. It just runs, right? And when we do talk about values, we use one or maybe two words. Values sound like things like success, freedom, honesty, integrity, family, health, wealth. You get the idea, right? The easy way to think about values is that they're the concepts or ideas, the high-level ideas that we run our lives with. Okay. Now, those values words naturally are ambiguous, right? For example, there can be many ways of defining an individual value or what leads to or causes or equals the attainment of that value. Like, let's say it's like the rules for knowing how a value is met or not met. And I want to take a look at these descriptions. I want to take a look at the rules. That's what we need to look at as we're going forward here. So these descriptions are what I'm going to refer to from now on as beliefs for the rest of this call. Something like, for example, if we want to take one of those values, like the value of success, right? A belief around that value could be something that sounds like hard work leads to success. That's a belief, right? That defines success. Now, another belief around success could be success is a matter of luck. Success is something you're born into. It's a matter of circumstance. Now, all of those are beliefs around success, and they help define that value. Here's the point. Each of those different beliefs will have a different influence on the behavior of the person who holds the belief. For example, if a person who values success believes that success comes from hard work, what are they going to do? They're going to work hard. They're going to go to work. They're going to show up. They're going to do what they need to do in order to be what they believe is successful. Okay. What about the person who believes that success is just luck? It's a matter of rolling the dice, seeing what comes up. They're going to be playing the lottery or maybe going to Vegas. Maybe they don't see working hard as being necessary, so they won't, right? We can see that the belief can be very different. The definition of the value can be different, but the value remains intact. So the value is bigger than the beliefs that support it. Think of beliefs like the apps on your computer. That's what we interact with day to day, right? The values like the operating system, the beliefs are like the apps. In other words, I like to think of it as the belief is the connection between a person's unconscious value and the real world or the conscious world that they're aware of. And every belief that they have influences their actions or their behavior in a very specific way. Whether they do something or not is based on the belief that's connected to the value. That's kind of the big picture. Does that all make sense so far? Am I losing everybody? Everybody's kind of like, I don't know. All right. If I'm losing you, I'll blast through this part real quick and I can answer questions. So because of all this, The first idea here is to begin with the frame that objections are simply beliefs that someone is using to connect to their real world to a value that's running subconsciously. And this is just how every single human being operates, only every single one. There's no differences on the big picture, right? Why is this important? Because beliefs, if we use the word belief, we often see that as being immutable or somehow sacred. We don't want to interfere with someone's beliefs. That's bad. Who says? There are a lot of people who are of the belief that to challenge someone else's beliefs, especially their core beliefs, is a bad thing. Meanwhile, they want to challenge yours, right? Then there are people who only seem to exist for the purpose of challenging other people's beliefs, right? There's a big following on social media with people who love to challenge people. Well, the truth is, all of our beliefs are constantly being exchanged, challenged, modified, strengthened, weakened, just within different contexts or within different frames, right? I would propose the idea if we don't change beliefs over time, we'll stay stuck in an old way of thinking. For example, can you guys think of anything that you used to believe that was true that now you realize wasn't? Or maybe it wasn't the whole truth, or maybe now you've got more information, you're older, you've had more experiences, you've modified that belief over time. Anybody think that? I can. Many things, in fact, practically everything, right? Practically everything you've ever believed, you have changed over time. So beliefs are not set in stone, right? This is a subject we could go into for hours, but I'm going to keep it really simple as I can, just for this context here. So let's focus on this principle for right now. The value that a person is supporting with the belief will still exist, even if they choose another way to define it or choose another belief. Does that all make sense? Right? I can still value success, even if the way that I define success has evolved over time, right? So let me ask you this. Here's the participation part. See how we're doing so far. Is it fair to say that a person can test their beliefs, adjust their beliefs, modify or even change a belief about something, and their underlying value system can still be in place? Yes? Everybody see that? Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for your participation. And is it also fair to say that an objection, whoops, I forgot the air quotes, is simply a specific type of belief or in a specific context, like a subset of beliefs? Is that also fair to say? Yeah, good. Excellent. Now, let me ask you this. Did anybody notice what just happened? If you said we just modified, challenged, installed, or changed a belief, you would be correct. And it probably felt very natural to explore what you were thinking, because it is. In fact, it happens all the time. All the time. Now you've experienced it firsthand. I want to give you a couple of tools that you can use to get started purposefully testing and exploring beliefs in whatever context they exist, okay? Don't worry, we're not going to play with anything dangerous for now. All right, so before we begin, let's define a belief. In this context, a belief is just a statement of fact, right? Or better said, it's a representation of what we consider to be true at a particular moment. That was a belief, wasn't it? Did y'all get that? I just stated a belief to you. This means that is a belief structure. X causes Y. That's a belief structure. If A, then B. That's how we structure belief. One is the other, right? All of these are simply ways that we communicate what we feel to be true. That was another one, right? By the way, this doesn't mean it is actually true, We'll get to that in a minute. When you start to look at the way people speak, the way we share ideas, this is why you don't have to worry about objections, because just about everything we say is a belief. That was one, wasn't it? And so was that. You get it? Everything. So by labeling some of these beliefs as objections, you're about to learn why I use air quotes. We label some of these beliefs as objections just based on their context and their delivery. It really isn't fair to the rest of the beliefs because they all work just as hard. That was a little joke. Sorry, maybe. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
So the point is that any belief is flexible given the right frame, the right context, and the right information. And here's what I said earlier. A belief does not have to be true. It only has to be plausible for the unconscious mind to be able to accept it. Let me repeat that. A belief doesn't have to be true. It only has to be plausible in order for the unconscious mind to be able to accept it. Okay? Really quickly, before we get started, I'll give you a quick list of the statements that I got. I got some beliefs that came in via email. By the way, thank you for everyone who submitted them, Chris, so that we could have something fun to play with. I know we'll have more, and that's okay. But all of the beliefs share the basic things in common. Now that you know what we're looking at, these will be really easy for you to disassemble at their core. Yeah. Chris sent in some beliefs. So here's a thing that you may or may not have heard. No thanks. I already have someone who handles that for me. Anybody heard that? Yeah, that's a really common one, right? No thanks. I already have somebody to do that. Now, I'm just going to give you like an opinion here, and then we'll get into the dissection of it later. It sounds like this is when you're attempting to gain an audience with somebody. That's totally cool. Chances are you may not have had time yet to discover what their values are. I'm sorry, I may have jumped to the end and given you something very, very important there, but don't worry about that. It probably wasn't on purpose. You might be able to overcome this with some advanced scouting, right? A preparation. If you're going to meet someone and you know nothing whatsoever about them and you're knocking on the door, you're going to get this a lot. I promise. Without preparation, it's going to be very common for you to get that. So if you can find out something about who you're dealing with before you get there, that will help stack the odds in your favor. Okay. Otherwise, you've got to quickly find a way to shift them into curiosity or some other kind of motivation. We talk about it with the taglines, with the subject lines on an email, right? If you don't capture that attention within, they say now 3 seconds, you lose it. Okay. Being able to do that in a live situation, very similar and very different to getting their attention, right? Here's another one. Hey, we're happy with the results we're getting with our current marketing system. Anybody hear that one? Kind of like the first one, right? Very similar. It also seems that it might be happening in that approach phase, right? We're going to cover a couple of patterns today that'll help you along with some steps to get to overcome the objection, right? Get over anyway. You might try altering your approach though, based on your preparation, based on your research, right? Another one, this is a fun one. The person you need to talk to isn't here. That's the first half of the objection. And then he added, but I don't think she'll be interested. Okay. You remember when I said opinions aren't objections? This is filed under that one, right? Also, I'd file this under, this isn't the decision maker, ergo not an objection, right? The exception might be is if this is a gatekeeper and you need this person's belief system to help you get an introduction to the decision maker, right? So are we noticing a little bit of a pattern? Anybody notice the pattern yet? These are approach objections, right? These are beliefs about a first introduction. When John talks about trying to get to propose marriage in the first meeting, it's too much. It's too big a step, right? Hey, I'd like to talk to the boss about something that can really help his business. Most gatekeepers are trained to repel you at that point because you're repelling them. A small thing, a small step is the best first step, right? Don't try to get them to the altar. Don't try to get their phone number. Like John says, suggest you meet for a cup of coffee. However that translates in the particular situation is a context-dependent thing. Here's another couple of things that Chris sent in. Now's not a good time to talk as I'm right in the middle of something, okay? That's a timing issue. Can you just send some information, right? That's a question. Remember, questions are not objections. How did you get my number? I love that one. Like your number's not out there for everyone to get. I read it on a bathroom wall would be my first inclination, but I wouldn't probably say that in a sales context. Although depends on the amount of rapport you have. Now it seems like all of these, Chris, are dealing with the initial attempt at setting an appointment. So looking at common ground, probably a good idea to refine the approach process and have a good foundation in mind to get to them with preparation and something catchy to say, right? So that's kind of an overarching principle on that. And that said, now let's get into a couple of kind of fun patterns. Oh, wait. There was one more objection. And I know this one, I get this all the time. Wow, your voice sounds so sexy on the phone. What are you wearing? Anybody get that one? By the way, just for your information, that will get you banned on ChatGPT. Don't ask me how I know. All right, you guys ready to dive into some deep stuff? We got kind of all the surface deep stuff going. So let's get into a couple of actual actionable patterns that you can put to use. Okay. In some of the advanced NLP trainings that I do, we get into the weeds, depending on where they come from. There could be up to 24 of these types of patterns that you can use to create different objection challenges. I'm not going to go through 24 challenges tonight. Okay, that would be way too much to handle. I'm going to get into one of the patterns a couple of different ways so you can get an idea what the power is like. Okay. So I was popping into my head, so I'm going to say it. Robert Dilts is the guy who created in NLP the idea of what's called sleight of mouth, and sleight spelled like sleight of hand, S-L-E-I-G-H-T. Sleight of mouth are reframing patterns so that you can take any objection, any belief statement, and change it in a different way, modify it, challenge it, get a different perspective on it. Robert Dilts is one of the most amazing NLP guys ever, and he's got a brand new book release. His second volume of Sleight of Mouth is coming out tomorrow. So if any of you are like, want to go into the weeds with a new book, I highly recommend it. So getting back to what I said earlier, let's start by changing the context in which the belief exists. All right, we're going to take this as a context change. Let's go back and circle back to something I mentioned earlier. Have you all been able to think of something that you used to believe that was true and now is no longer true, right? I've got an easy one for you. Somebody mentioned something like this in the comments. Oh, I just see that. I am so sorry. Lily, NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. I'm so sorry. I completely missed that in my bio. I usually de-jargonize right from the front, and I apologize for not doing that. Neuro-Linguistic Programming is just the study of the mind and the way language affects the patterns of behavior and the thoughts of people. It's really super simple. My apologies for not covering that. Okay, cool. So circling back, something that you at one time were convinced was true. Here's an easy one for me. I'm 18 years old. At one point in time, That was absolutely true for me. Then the context changed. The context of time shifted past a point where that was no longer true. Okay. Now I know what you're probably thinking. Time had to pass in order for that to happen. How does that relate to us getting an objection if you're still objectifying beliefs? A belief in a certain context that masquerades as an objection. It's a good question. Okay. Here's the answer that you may not be expecting. Time is a concept, right? How do you use the idea of time to change the context of what's masquerading as a current belief? Okay, let's take one of the ones that Chris emailed to me. Let's say they tell you, no thanks, I already have someone who handles that for me, right? Notice that the presupposition, okay, we assume the context for this belief is now, that I currently have a solution in place. So we can imagine there was a time before that happened. Unless this was, from the beginning of time, something had to change at some point. So let's change the context of time in the question. You might say something like, given that you already have somebody who handles this for you, by the way, that's what we call an NLP pacing. I'm repeating the objection back to them. Okay, meeting the person where their belief system already is, right? Given that you already have someone who handles this for you, let me ask you this. Before you hired that person, when you were still looking, what was it that made you choose them? And don't say anything. After pacing the belief, we're going to lead into something that's related but slightly different. Right? We pace the belief, then we lead into something new, right? Given that you've already have somebody who handles it currently, before that, what were you looking for? Now, what is this going to tell us? It seems crazy, right? What is this going to tell you? If they answer you, they have to go back in time. Their mind has to take the journey back into the past. This happens, by the way, completely automatically. And it also happens even if they don't answer you. In order to consider the question, they must take a journey back in time. Okay. If they do answer you, here's the cool part. This is bonus material. You get insights into the way they make decisions. And you get insights into what they find to be important. This is, as Richard said, this is solid gold hidden in the ore of the belief, metaphorically speaking, right? This is the mother lode to carry on the metaphor, right? If you get insight into someone's values, into someone's criteria, what they decide is important, now you have something that you can speak to. You can help them change their definitions. Okay. You could focus a different question, same objection, focus on the company and say it a bit differently. You could say, if they say, no, thanks, I already have somebody who handles that for me. You could say something like, we know that's good to hear. There's the pace. Tell me, what was the company struggling with when you hired them? Again, they've got to go back in time, determine the answer of the question, and then give it to you. Or even if they don't, they still had to make the journey and do the computation. So you've created a picture in their mind of getting ready to make a change. And that's powerful. Okay. There are a lot of ways to approach this idea. So it's a good idea, if you're going to use these, to practice shifting the context of time now before you need to use it someday. See how that works? You can take a whole time warp journey in one sentence. Let's think about, you could also take it to an imagined future, right? You've already gone to the past. Let's go to an imagined future. Let's say they tell you, I already have someone who does that. You could answer, excellent. Now, if you could imagine a time after the company has grown enough to say, take on an additional provider, what kind of projections would you need to consider now in order to move in that direction? Notice that we also suggested to them that they might expand their belief to include an additional provider without even challenging their current situation. I'm not challenging that belief. I'm just saying, hey, look, someday, if you were choose to expand, maybe add another person who does this, what would have to happen now in order to move towards that? Again, we're taking them in time into a situation that they hadn't been involved with yet, right? If they accept the question, by the way, even if they consider the question, unless they go, hey, whoa, just a second there, hold on, we're not going down that road, which they won't do, by the way. But if they don't reject it, and if it's a small step, if it's a plausible step, by the way, is it plausible that years from now or sometime in the future, they might have grown their business enough to add another position? Is that plausible? Say yes, of course it is. Every business owner hopes that they will grow to a point where they can, add additional resources. So if they accept the question, if they consider that question, then the suggestion of looking for an additional provider is received automatically by the unconscious mind, and you've created a picture of that happening. Whoa. You just had them run the movie in their mind of including something that they hadn't even considered. You just changed or allowed them to change the belief. By the way, even if they don't put it into words, that happened in the subconscious. Okay. And since time is a construct, one might consider this future scenario could play out as soon as, let's say, I don't know, now, given the rest of the correct information. So are these magic questions that will automatically overpower and overcome an objection? No, they're not supposed to, okay? Don't misunderstand. This is not like the old canned rebuttals that you may have heard to, anybody ever gone through old school sales training, right? You got an objection, and what did you get? You got a list of rebuttals. Dear gosh, they're terrible. They're always terrible, and they're always trying to manipulate somebody into doing what they don't want to do. These are not designed for that. These are designed to shift perspective on the belief, then allow the client or the prospect, the other person, to give them more information and to give you more information. If they answer you, you will get clues. You will get insights that you can use to move the conversation. Right? I like to think of it as this way. Asking questions the right way keeps a conversation alive. Once a conversation dies, it's over. But as long as it continues, even if it doesn't seem to be going the right way, you can find, with the right skills, the ways to continue moving it forward towards an outcome that's a win-win for everyone. Does that make sense? Everybody still with me? I'm sorry. I've talked a lot. I hope it's starting to make some sense. So that pattern that I've shown you there is simply how to change the context. We started with time, which is one of my favorite things to play with. I mean, I don't know if you can imagine 6 months from now, looking back on today as the time when you decided to change everything that you were going to do now. I mean, it's a little time trip, and I like it. I love playing with the time variant, and there are more though. So we have to share a little bit of time with other things. So let's explore quickly shifting perspectives as well, because when we shift content, all of this is in the context of shifting context. So let's explore shifting a perspective as well. And this is where we begin to test the foundation of the belief as well. Okay, what is a perspective? It's just how to look at something, right? From a viewpoint, a standpoint, a way of looking, right? Shifting to a broader view, a narrower view, a self view, right? A view from other people's perspective. All of these different perspectives can have a profound effect on the way that someone continues on to, with a belief or changes a belief, right? also can be a very effective way for you to gain more insights, especially when you combine it. You can combine it, by the way, with a time pattern if you want to. Let's do a couple more quick examples. Take another objection that Chris said. We're happy with the results we're getting. There's no need to change. Okay. Well, it's great. You might say something like, it's great that you're having success with what you're already doing. That can help create a sense of freedom. That's a value word for you to continue to evaluate new ways to grow and expand the company, which is the ideal position you would have to be in order to be able to consider this proposal. Now, the thing that stops most people won't even be a problem for you. What a relief. Did you guys catch that? I went a little off the deep end, got a little complex. Did you catch what I did there? Right? It's great that you're having success. That's a pace, right? That can help create a sense of freedom. This is a value word that I'm guessing is important to a business owner. How many of you own businesses and are looking for freedom? Just curious. If you raise your hands, if those of you have your cameras on. Only all of you. That's flipping amazing. Only all of us want freedom. Is it fair to say that guessing that somebody's value would be freedom is gonna hit probably in the high 90% of most business owners? Yes. So if I can help them create a sense of freedom, and if I tell them it's going to help create a sense of freedom, it's very plausible. What are we going to do with that? By the way, that was the lead, right? It's great you're having success, pace. That can help create a sense of freedom. Lead, very plausible lead. So you can continue to evaluate new ways to grow and expand the company. Another lead, which is, this is called a pivot. We don't want to get too into the weeds, but it's called a pivot where I take that lead that I just created, turn it into a pace, which is the ideal position. What position? The position of you feeling freedom so that you can continue to evaluate new ways to grow and expand the company. That's the ideal position you'd have to be in order to consider what I'm going to propose to you. Whoa. The thing that stops most other people isn't even a problem for you. What a relief. That was a fairly complex one. I just want to kind of throw it out there and muddy up the water a little bit. So let's take a different one. Here's the same objection and a different way to say it. Now, I've been trying to be very PC, very generic, but there comes a time sometimes when you need to be blunt, right? So I'll give you an example of an answer that can be a little bit more challenging. So let's say that the client says, we're happy with the results we're getting. There's no need for me to change. Let me be blunt, Bob. I don't imagine that your competition is resting on being happy with their results. Rather, they're coming after your market share. And I'm here to prevent that from them from getting that. Will you let me do it? That's a direct challenge to their statement of belief. Okay. Is it harsh? Yeah, maybe. In the right context, though, with the right amount of rapport and the right amount of connections, it's very effective. Because what is it? It's a shocker. Boom. Because they don't expect a salesperson to talk like that. Look, man, I don't imagine your competition is resting on being happy with their results. Do you? They're coming after you, and I'm here to help them prevent getting your market share. You going to stop me? That's your choice. You're welcome to do that. Okay. Takes a little confidence, takes a power position, but it's a very strategic shot across the bow, if you will. Okay. It's just an example of a perspective shift. For that perspective, by the way, who did we shift to? What do you think your competition's doing? This is another person's perspective. They're looking at their perspective when they give you the objection. Well, what if your competition looked at it that way? I don't think they are, right? It causes them to hallucinate, causes them to imagine, right? It's very effective. Do you think that they might challenge their own belief when they have to look at it from that perspective? Say yes, of course. Here's some other perspective shifts that we can, you can apply these practically like right out of the box. I want to give you some like kind of ready to go stuff that you don't have to go into the weeds deep in practice. Here's one example. Whatever the belief is that you hear, how do you imagine that your competitors, your family, your employees are considering that problem? create an objection. Somebody shout out an objection, put an objection somewhere, or a objection, a belief.
They say, well, this sounds expensive. I can't afford it. Or we don't have the budget for it right now.
Excellent. You know, I'm just curious, Chris, how do you think that your employees are going to react to that when knowing that a simple small investment now could have meant scads of bonuses for them in the future? What do you think they would consider? Just curious. Right. Again, you can create anything about anything and just shift it and answer it. It's not a canned response. So I wonder what your family would say if they knew that you were, you know, pinching pennies instead of creating a future for them. Lots of different ways. Okay. Here's another example. Is it more important for you to consider the time, money, etc.? Here's a good one. Is it more important for you to consider the money involved in the decision or the ultimate result of achieving the outcome you're looking for? I'm just curious. Because an investment implies a return, doesn't it? And I wouldn't be here if I couldn't promise you a return. Good. Here's another one. I appreciate that belief, whatever it is, you can restate it. I appreciate that money is a concern. And I'm curious if it's worth it to look at it as it compares to trends that are emerging in your industry right now, because things are changing. Would you agree? By the way, is it hard to disagree with the statement, things are changing? Because things only change all the time. So if I say, look, Chris, things are changing. And I'm curious, is it worth it to look at this as it compares to the trends that are emerging in your industry right now, or in your market right now, in your area right now, in your own mind right now? I don't know. You can take it anywhere you want. Here's another. I appreciate that belief. And let me ask you this. If we were to focus right now on the biggest challenge you're facing, what would be the one thing that would impact you the most? What does that do? Has them look at whatever the belief is and from a different perspective. What's the one thing? Because what do most entrepreneurs, what are most entrepreneurs guilty of? Overwhelm. Everything all at once. Okay. If I turn my camera around right now, you would see 5 screens. I kid you not. I have 5 screens and I probably have 100 tabs open. I am not kidding and I'm not exaggerating. We suffer from overwhelm. If somebody asked me, and I'm not projecting my own beliefs here, but if somebody asked me, Jay, look, if you could narrow it down to the one thing that would impact you the most right now, can you feel that? Can you feel like, how's that for me? That would be like, whoa. And I would go there in my mind, even if I couldn't say the words or didn't want to say the words. Just get out of my office. I don't want to. It doesn't matter. The picture's already been created. Okay. We can also offer the questions as a choice. Okay, this is another kind of interesting way to spin this. I hope you guys are taking notes. If not, you just have to listen to the recording. Let's offer these perspectives as a choice. Listen, are you considering this as it relates to the overall industry trends or more as it applies to you on a local level? Let's say you've got a business that has a local location. We're looking at industry trends here, Chris, or are we looking at just how it affects you on a local level or a regional level or national level, right? Choice, the offer of choice is extremely powerful, right? And it requires their mind to create both pictures to even process the question. How cool is that? If you want to have your client create 2 pictures, let's say, by the way, did anybody catch the presupposition with that choice? Let me say it again. Hey, Chris, are you considering this as it relates to the overall industry trends or more as it applies to you on a local level? What's a presupposition?
Are you considering?
Thank you. Are you considering? Are you considering what? In this context, are you considering whatever we're talking about? Now, if I can offer a choice and say, hey, Chris, are you considering how this relates to you? Or Libby, if you were to consider this, would you consider it from an industry trends level, or more like how it affects you personally on a local level, or how it affects you regionally? I'm curious. You just had to run both of those pictures, both of those movies in your mind. You've created an image, which those images, by the way, live near the values. They're in the subconscious part of the mind, the part that creates dreams, the part that creates thoughts. That's where those live. The words are secondary. They have to be, that's another, sorry, that's like deep, deep stuff for another conversation. Choice is extremely powerful. And anytime, by the way, could you offer a choice of 3? Ooh, how interesting would that be? I'm curious. Are we looking at what we're talking about from your perspective, your family's perspective, or your employee's perspective? We just ran 3 outcomes. By the way, your unconscious mind can process this stuff in an instant. Don't worry about overpowering the unconscious mind. You cannot do it. In fact, your conscious mind is slower than your subconscious mind. So everything, once you realize something, the subconscious mind has already processed it. That's very important. So if I give somebody 3 choices or 2 choices or 1 choice, whatever it is, they've already created the image in their head before they can think about the words that I used. Does that make sense? Everybody okay? Is this too deep in the weeds, guys? Are we okay with this? I'm like pulling out some heavy guns. All right. Wow. So, and I want to try to, make sure we don't run out of time here too. So we're almost wrapped up. So we've covered pacing, leading, shifting time, shifting perspective, context, and all of this is just a tiny, tiny, tiny sliver. Tiny sliver. I mean, I'm certified to teach this stuff for hundreds of hours. Okay. So I had to like peel back what I could go over and have fun. Right. So keep it in mind, even though I'm giving you some examples here, this is serious. No 2 situations are ever identical. Please, 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 please don't pretend these are scripts. They're not. In fact, I have a big disagreement with some people. I'm the anti-script. I believe that reading the situation, reading people, and responding in time, in real time, in that context is vastly more important than anything you could memorize as a rote response. So don't think of these as scripts or magic bullets or things that you can memorize and pull out anytime, because they're not, okay? You will be drastically disappointed if you try to use them that way, right? I want you to simply use what we've talked about tonight as a framework so you can practice, because practice improves your skills. If you just throw these out there without considering the situation, 99 times out of 100, they will not have the desired effect. I promise you that, okay? These are like serving suggestions, okay? Something I want to take with you from this little mini webinar is this, and this part you might want to write down. I probably won't remember it. Objections are simply beliefs. And beliefs are how all human beings communicate practically all the time about everything, right? So as you learn to recognize what the most relevant thing is in any given situation, you can look forward to hearing whatever it is they believe, anything they believe. It's okay. Because every single belief, if you're listening right, gives you clues. Every single belief gives you an insight into the values that they hold as most important without them ever knowing about it. How cool is that? So I'll wrap up by giving you something funny, right? These are some of Jay's silly sales rules. Okay, I just made these up. Rule number 1, because everybody has to have a list of rules. That's important, right? In any webinar, you have to have a list of rules, right? Because I don't know, I read that somewhere. Rule number 1, everybody loves to buy stuff. Everybody, think about it. Everybody you know loves to buy stuff. You love to buy stuff, and the cooler, the better, right? Who doesn't love to have cool stuff? The cooler, the better. Notice I did not say the cheaper, the better. Second rule, rule number 2. I know you may have heard this somewhere earlier, but a question is not an objection, right? How did you get my number? Probably best not to say off the bathroom wall, but it's just a question. Answer the questions when they're little. Like Richard said, answer the questions when they're small. You can still use the patterns, overcome it before it becomes a big, seething belief, right? Yeah, answer it when it's small. Seek them out. Be willing to stop your presentation and find what the question is. It looks like you have a question. I'm sorry, I was just, explaining something. It looks like a question to flash in your mind. By the way, do you all know when somebody has a question? You can see it in their face, right? We all know this. I'm sorry, it looks like something I said triggered a question. Would you mind telling me what it is? They're going to share it with you. And you can actively take care of it right then when they're looking for it. Okay, rule number 3, only consider objections that are important to the decision maker. Okay, they aren't here, but that seems expensive. That's an opinion. That's not an objection. Conserve your ammunition, right? Don't be spraying and praying with all of your newfound skills, right? Rule 4, always, 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 always work with whatever is important to the client, but only always work with their values. That's the most important thing to them. Remember, okay? 5th rule, rule number 5, you did not hear this earlier too. Money is never the objection, and never, ever allow the client to try to commoditize you. You're not a can of soup, okay? If you consider lowering yourself to comparing prices, you have become a can of soup on a shelf. Don't do it, okay? Don't do it. I don't even care if you're the best, most expensive, I don't know what is most expensive, Progresso or whatever. Don't do it. You're not a can of soup. Never let them commoditize you. Okay, to wrap it up, my belief is this. You can share it or not if you like it. Objections aren't even really there. Okay, if you understand how to elicit the client's buying emotions and their outcomes, by the way, not yours. If you ask effective questions and deliver what they need, the objections will just magically disappear. Okay. Whew, there's a lot more to talk about. I scratched a scratch on the surface. I wrote a lot of it down so I could just kind of get through it without, too much crazy. Just in these type of belief challenging patterns, there are at least 13 more, sometimes, 23 more. And that's just one little tiny area of NLP. So if you guys are interested, let me know. If I'm willing to form a little club and do something kind of like what John has going here, if you want to, some kind of group coaching thing, email me. Let me know. Campbell's chunky. Roger that. Don't become Campbell's chunky. I don't care. Campbell's skinny, maybe. I don't. Anyway, send me an email. Let me know if this would be of interest to you. I can also schedule like one-on-ones, and if anybody's looking for specific coaching, marketing, emails, copywriting, anything that NLP can help with. You've got like a little tiny look into one part of my brain today. So if you're willing to unleash that, we can have a chat. You can reach me. My email is jwilliamscoach@gmail.com. I'll also put it in the chat during the questions here if you like. And other than that, I appreciate the invite. John, take over. If anybody has questions, I'll be happy to answer them. I hope that didn't go too crazy there.
Oh, that was cool. It's like when I'm listening to you, a lot of people probably weren't catching a lot of the stuff you were doing. And I'm like, oh, there's an open loop. There's a pattern interrupt. There's a little pre-framing, a little future pacing.
That all of those things may or may not have happened during that conversation.
Yeah, even timelining. You wove the timeline in there. That was awesome.
Thanks, man. I appreciate
But
you.
yeah, like NLP, I got to tell you, of the things that I've learned, I spent a fair amount of money on NLP, and I was questioning my whole thing about doing that at the time. But after it was done and I realized the benefit that I got out of it, it was a bargain at any price. And it's like
I would
Jay
agree.
says, you know, this can help in a lot of areas. It can help in just about everything I can think of. It's communication at its pure finest. And you know, when we look at the ACT program is purely about communication. So NLP is about refining your communication skills and your abilities. And like, you know, he talked about all the beliefs. That was something like in ACT, I've been teaching Benjamin Franklin's way of changing beliefs. You know, it's how to eliminate any objection. And Benjamin Franklin, I don't know if he knew about NLP, but I got to tell you, he used it.
There's no such thing as NLP. I have to break it to everybody. There's no such thing. NLP is a myth. It's just a catalog of what people have been doing for hundreds of years. Absolutely, Benjamin Franklin knew NLP before it was such a thing.
It's merely the instructions for the operating system for that thing that lives between your ears. It's
Yeah.
literally how to tap directly into the operating system. And you must be careful, because what Jay was saying about you can see when a person is asking a question, and this is advanced stuff, but you better live within it and understand it, is that you can't do NLP to someone without doing it to yourself first. And so that means that when you're pointing that gun at somebody, I'm going to manipulate them and get them to do something. You got those 3 more barrels pointing back at you. So don't get into thinking this is great. I'm going to make them, you know, jump up and down and quack like a duck and do all that sort of stuff, because you'll quack first. So use it ethically.
Yeah, I hope everybody's clear on the fact that I never even implied manipulation. Right. Manipulation is or using this ethically is a presupposition on my part. If I find anybody is using it unethically, I will go so dark, so quick. But anyway, that's a whole nother side of me that you don't want to meet. No, use it ethically, morally. It's to promote win-win scenarios, guys. It's not to manipulate anybody. If you try to manipulate with somebody, that stuff will come back on you so fast, like Richard says, it will bite you in the whatever part is available to be bitten. I promise.
Or just swallow you whole.
Yeah, it's really awesome stuff though, when you learn how it works and how to use it for yourself. And actually, like, you're not really using it for yourself, you're using it for others. You know,
Yes.
this is one of the things, like when I listened way back to Dr. Moyne speak about using it particularly for sales, he said it's your job to guide, not persuade, to guide someone to the right decision. And he says, you know, how hard are you willing to fight for them? And he gave the scenario of, if you had the cure for cancer, you know, he just threw this out as a hypothetical. He said, if you had the cure for cancer and you met a little girl that had cancer and there was no cure for her, she was going to die. She had been given that diagnosis. And now you have to talk to her parents and let them know that you have something that will save her. And if they have objections or whatever, how far are you willing to go to save that little girl? And he said, you know, you have the power to change their mind, or rather guide them to the right decision. So when you're using this in sales, look at it that way. You're guiding someone to the right decision. If you have something that can truly help someone and you let them slide by, you let them off the hook, you're not serving them very well. That's really what it comes down to. That right there changed my entire outlook on sales. Up to that point in my life, I thought sales were icky. I wanted no part of it. It just didn't feel right. It felt like, you know, I had equated it to the used car salesman, the pushy guy that's just trying to get you to do something you don't want to do. And I did not want to be that person. When I got that pre-framing from Dr. Moyne, it changed everything for me. everything. It was now, okay, I'm a warrior. I'm going to fight for you, to guide you to what I know is going to help you. And I've been doing that ever since. And that was even before I really learned the stuff, really learned the goods. But to use it to help people, to get what they really want, what they really need. It's a very, very powerful tool. And, I think Jay said it, he might not have said it in this way, but where there's power, there's responsibility. So, you are responsible for outcomes. So be careful with that. Be good, do good, and Jay won't go dark on you. You don't want Jay going dark on you.
It's not a pretty picture. I don't like to do it. Well, that was a terrible genie. I'm so sorry. That was horrible.
He will make you confess your war crimes. But it's really cool stuff. All right, Lily, you got a question there. Let's go ahead and unmute. There you go.
Hi again. Thank you, Jay. For that, I'm definitely interested in learning more. So there's a sign-up sheet. Let me know. I actually just last week attended a webinar on a sales system, and I'm just curious if you guys have heard it. It's called 7th Level with Jeremy Miner, and he teaches this thing called a persuasion and psychological system called NEPQ, which stands for Neuro Emotional Persuasion Questioning. And he's all over social media now, so that's how I got clued into it. And it sounds similar to NPL.
It sounds like what he's doing is teaching a form of NLP, and he's created a unique mechanism with that acronym that you just threw out.
Oh, okay.
Which is a brilliant marketing ploy. You want to create something that makes you look different, even if you're the same.
Right.
So like if 4 NLP guys show up in a room and they all give their pitch and it all sounds similar, and this guy shows up and he gives his pitch and it sounds similar, but it's got a different name to it, he's all of a sudden different. And in many cases viewed as better because he's the only one. So
yeah.
But in short, I have not heard of him or
you haven't heard of him. Okay.
program.
I haven't either. My opinion is learn from everybody you can. Just understand what it is that your outcome is, what you want to take from whatever training you take, and learn everything. I study with everybody. In fact, I'm currently studying with Robert Dilts. This is one volume of a 2-volume NLP set. It's kind of cool.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like 1,600 pages. I'm like, I'm nerding out, man.
And I do the same thing. Like I've learned NLP little pieces from multiple different people. I learned my base training from Matt Brawning, but even prior to Matt, I was learning things from the guy that was training Eric Lawfulm, with the Dr. Moyne guy. And then I learned stuff from Jay and Michael Stevenson, and and Jay was kind of the brains behind Michael Stevenson's whole organization before they split ways. So it was really that. So it all kind of came back. All kind of came back to Jay. So it's really good stuff, though. I really do encourage you guys to learn as much as you can from whoever you can. But you got somebody that's really good right here in front of you. So take advantage of that. He's part of our group and part of our community and willing to share. So
that's very kind. Thanks, John.
Yeah, absolutely. So Chris, what do you got for us today?
Hey, Jay. Thanks for everything. I appreciate you're doing that.
My pleasure.
And yeah, I have 2 questions for you. as you were saying this, as you were describing this, I was taking notes, and the important thing is that questions are not objections, or objections are not, I forget the phrases, but
Sounds
I thought
vaguely familiar. I'm
sounds
pretty sure I read that
vaguely
somewhere.
familiar.
That's interesting.
And
You're not saying, Chris, that you've started to begin to change how you think about whatever it was that we used to say. I can't remember now.
Yeah.
that's
It's almost
exactly
as
what
though it gets further away every time you try to think of it. But
No, that's exactly what I'm about to say. It has changed me, watching
Sweet.
this, and the thing that changed was that, hearing this, just you're saying, objections are not blank, blank, blank. I thought to myself, oh, well, this gives me more confidence, to make the calls.
Awesome.
But then I thought, well, wait a minute now. And then I said, well, what is it that's keeping me from confidence? Well, I've been equating beliefs. I've been equating that a rejection of the product is a rejection of me. And so
Profound.
you think? And
I just got goosebumps.
yeah. And but
This
so
was
my
not intended to be a therapy session. I'll be invoicing you.
gotta go. And
Sorry. No, that's awesome, Chris.
yeah.
I'm excited.
But then the question, here's my first question. It's like, oh, so it's a rejection of me. How useful is NLP on ourselves?
I never thought of that.
Another insightful thought. But so my question is,
Chris, you're like batting 1,000, man. Yeah, no,
well,
NLP is not at all useful on oneself. I highly doubt that it's useful.
fantastic.
That's the first place you use it, Chris.
Exactly. Man,
Yeah.
I was such a mess when I got into NLP. The reason I got NLP was I was a mess.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah.
And the guy that I learned NLP from, literally, I had been searching for like 6 months, trying to find somebody professional to be able to help me. And I say professional, the same quotes I use for objections. You know what I feel about professional. Anyway,
Mm.
Can you help me? Can you help me? Can you help me? One guy wanted to sell me books. Another guy wanted to, say, look, in 6 months, if you come and see me once a week, we can start to unpack what's wrong with you. I'm like, man, talk about making me feel like there was something wrong with me.
Yeah.
Then I go to a seminar, and this guy in 8 minutes leads me through this process that like just completely destroyed all the stuff that I had in my brain. I'm like, oh, dude, I don't know what happened. I got into NLP because I was messed up, not because I wanted to be like some crusader and help the world. I was, forget that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, then,
profound, man.
okay. Well, if you entertain a request or a suggestion, and then I have one other quick question. So maybe you've offered to help the group and whatnot. And my initial thought was like, oh yeah, we can, work on those objections. We already have somebody. And I thought, well, what if Jay had, offered to have a session where we just worked on us first?
No
Where we state to you our objections to selling this product. Why does the phone weigh 400 pounds? But anyway,
just something I didn't mention, but is true only every time, is the only objection that you cannot overcome is your own.
Right. So anyway, my last question is there, other than the interest you've expressed in maybe helping us or working with us, is there a book? If I was going to get a book, could you, where do I get a book? Where do I start? Is there a starter book, on a basic level that you could recommend? I know you mentioned a book coming out recently, or, tomorrow, and the book
Sleight of Mouth 2 is coming out tomorrow with Robert Dilts. Dilts is a very heavy read. I don't know.
That's what I'm thinking.
Saw the 800-page book that I just showed you. He's like seriously deep stuff. And as an NLP master trainer, sometimes I go, huh?
Yeah.
So yeah, there are a lot of books written. Here's how I will answer that question. And this is my opinion. You can read a lot of books about NLP. They're out there everywhere. NLP traditionally, in the last 30 or so of the 50 years that it's been around, is largely taught as a therapeutic method. That means we're in a situation, somebody says, hey, I want to work on me. Can you help me overcome my problem? We meet together and I say, how is the problem manifesting for you? You describe it to me and I do some technique or trick or magic act to help it go away, right? To help you shift your ways of thinking. That's great. And it's bad because it's the easiest way to teach NLP. So it became, I noticed Tim mentioned, this is like the world of programs, coaching. It became like, let's teach NLP the fastest, most expedient way possible so we can fill a bunch of seats with a bunch of people and make money.
Mhm. Yeah.
The fastest way is when there's an agreement frame between two people that says, hey, I have a problem. Will you help me?
Mhm.
And I say, yes, I'll help you. Here's, it costs this much. Here's what we're going to do. That's the easiest frame. One of the more difficult frames is live communication with somebody who has no idea what you're there for, has no idea what you're doing. Day to day is the hardest way to learn NLP. So is there a book that I would recommend based on that? Man, I'm struggling because I don't know of anybody who's created that yet. If there is one and somebody knows about it, please correct me because I would love to get it. But what I call tactical NLP is using NLP principles in day-to-day activities with yourself, with your family, your people that are around you without being objectionable. I'm trying to keep it politically correct. Somehow it's difficult at times.
Yeah.
Because there are parts of NLP, if you overuse them, people will think you're a real jerk.
I understand.
I think
Yeah.
the best way really to learn NLP is to have a practical use for it, a need for a particular thing, and then go to somebody that has a course or a training or something, a program that is built to specifically address that.
Okay.
And then you'll learn it in a way that will be much more meaningful than just filling your mind with a bunch of stuff that you may or may not need or may not use.
Mhm.
And
I had
confuse
no choices. I had no choices when I took NLP. I had to take it as a therapeutic training because that's all I knew, all that was offered. Looking back, and I teach this in my advanced persuasion classes. If I had to recommend a class for someone to take, if like say, would it be better to have a practitioner, a master practitioner, or a trainer's certificate? I would say no, because you'll have to unlearn a bunch of the program in order to really install NLP at an individual personal life level. So that's my opinion. It's unpopular, especially in the realm of NLP. I get a lot of stuff for that, but it's my experience. So, and if you guys, like I said, if you guys want to do like a club meeting where we do this kind of stuff like on a regular basis, I can get with John, see if there's a way to do that. It wouldn't be free, but it'd be affordable, and we could do it on a regular
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people.
regular basis.
I think there's a lot of people that would get a lot of benefit out of that.
It'd be fun.
Sure.
It'd be fun. I would get a lot of benefit out of it. I love to dissect this stuff and go deep in the rabbit holes and figure it out.
Yeah. NLP is all about patterns, like looking at patterns that work for one person and then taking that pattern and transplanting it into another person so they can get the same result. And
in a fraction of the time. That's what we talk about, time compression, man.
Yeah, that was what, Jay and I had this conversation about, like how am I able to do that so quickly, to move from one thing and master something so quickly? I've done it over and over and over and over throughout my entire life. And he said, that's what you're doing. He said, you're compressing time using a program, a pattern that you just do naturally. So we kind of unpacked it. I went through the process of how do I create a big idea, and he documented it. He's like, yeah, we can build a meta pattern out of this and take what
I got to dig those. I got to dig those videos out and bring them here. That would be fun.
Yeah. But he said, we can take your brilliance and clone that and transplant that into anybody. It's a pattern. So that's something, maybe he'll get to that and figure that out and and he'll be able to take my programs out of my head and put them into yours. That would be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
You have a flash drive?
I've been trying to get it out of my ear. It's stuck.
Matrix. That's too fun.
But anyway, any other questions? I think I don't want to go and add more on top of this because you guys are probably fully loaded to the hilt at this point. But any questions, anything before we wrap up today? All right. Well, awesome. Hey, I want to thank everybody, including Jay, for coming on and sharing that. And thank you guys for coming on and
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you,
Thank you.
taking it
Jay.
all in.
My
Thank you,
pleasure.
Jay.
Thank you
Jay.
guys very much. John, thank you for inviting me. This was fun. This has been percolating around in my brain for months.
That's
This would
awesome.
be so much fun. So when I mentioned it to John, he was happy about it. I was like,
Well, if
cool,
it's
let's make it
percolating
happen.
in your brain, my brain's on espresso, so we're okay.
It's fun, isn't it?
It is.
Too much. All
Cool
right. Well, I
stuff.
appreciate you guys very much. John, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, again, thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of the group. We love doing what we're doing. So we will talk to you guys next week. Regular time, regular channel. We'll be back and do it all again.
Same bat time, same bat channel. Thanks so much.
All ashore
Bye-bye.
that's going
Everybody.
ashore. Goodbye, Captain.
Bye-bye.